Welcome to you all for the first virtual annual general meeting of the Leicestershire County Council Pension Fund. You all should have access to the papers of the meeting, which are publicised on the County Council's website. The meeting is being broadcast via Microsoft Teams Live and will be available for viewing following the meeting. Item 1, minutes. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of November 2020 be approved. Item 2, question time. We have not received any questions. Item 3, questions asked by members. We have not received any questions. Item 4, urgent items. There are no urgent items. Item 5, declarations of interest. I have not been notified of any declarations of interest. So I'll move on to the item 6, the annual report and accounts for 2019 and 2020. The Pension Fund Annual Report and Accounts 2019-20 on pages 9 to 52 of the agenda pack. Chris Tambini, Director of Corporate Resources, Ian Howe, Pensions Manager, and Bulesh Khakra, Senior Finance Analyst, will talk through the presentation on the annual report and accounts. This will be followed by a question and answer session. If you wish to submit a question, please select the Q&A button on the right-hand side of the screen. You can then type your question into the compose box and then click the second button and click the send button. So it's over to you then, Chris.
Thank you, Peter. So as Peter said, I'm going to talk about the first couple of kind of bullet points in terms of that slide, and then Ian will talk about the administration, particularly some of the more recent changes that are coming our way, and Bulesh will talk about kind of pensions investment and responsible investment. Can we move on a slide, please? Yeah. So in terms of what is the local government pension scheme, it is a national scheme. So nationally, there are about 6 million members of the scheme, and there's getting on approaching for £300 billion worth of investments under control of the local government pension scheme. At a local level, it's kind of managed by local kind of pension administration arrangements. And there's 99 separate funds across the UK. And there's also pooling arrangements, which I know Bulesh is going to talk about in a little bit more detail. It is a defined benefit scheme rather than a defined contribution scheme. So in effect, the employer does pick up some of the risk in terms of the benefits in terms of the overall kind of investment strategy. Back in 2014, the scheme did change from a final salary scheme to a career average scheme. There were a number of other changes at that time as well. And at a local level, we've got 188 employers. That has increased substantially over recent years as a result of the academisation of schools. We've got all the local councils in there, and a lot of the universities as well. It is overseen by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and also as with all pension schemes, the pension regulator takes an active interest. At a local level, there are kind of two local governance bodies. We move on to the next slide, please. So the first one is the local pensions committee, and that really does take on an overall responsibility for the fund, with a particular kind of focus on investments. That's got 10 employer representatives, so the county council's got local members on there, as has the city council, and also district council have got representative as well. Universities have also got representatives, so kind of 10 in total. There's also 3 scheme member representatives, so they kind of represent the employees, the scheme members. And the principal aim is to consider pension matters with a view to safeguarding the interests of all scheme members. So that really is the key local kind of governance committee. Probably about 5 years ago, nationally, we were recommended to establish a local pensions board, and this is really to focus on the administration of this of the scheme. And within that, it's got 3 employer representatives, so that the county council and the city council are represented in terms of local councillors. But the balance of it is heavily skewed towards members, so employee representatives, with 3 employee representatives. Because I say that the key focus of this is really on ensuring that the administrative authority is effective and efficient in terms of how we administer the scheme. Move on to the next slide. Yeah. I'm not going to go through this in a huge amount of detail, just to kind of sets out some of the key kind of administration duties that we cover as part of that role. But what I would say is we do take this role kind of really seriously. And if you could move on to the next slide, this will kind of explain in part why we do. I mean, it won't be long before there are over 100,000 members of the local scheme, and you can see the split there. So you've got active contributors, so these are members who are still employed by the member authorities and are paying into the pension scheme. So over 35,000 people who fit into those category. And then you've got preserved members. So what these are members who have been part of the scheme, have paid money into the scheme, but are now kind of not working in local government or aren't paying into the scheme. So again, nearly 30,000 people who fit into that category. And then over 30,000 pensioners. And from my perspective, it is the largest, I suppose, financial kind of process that we manage at the county council, with such a large number of kind of beneficiaries. So it is kind of key that we make sure that the administration does work really effectively, and I'm pleased to say that we do manage that. It does work well. All this slide does is kind of shows some of the work by year. So these are some of the kind of categories of work that were completed in 1920. So you can see there are over 8,000 new entrants to the scheme, over 3,000 retirements, and also nearly 3,000 kind of preserve leavers. And you can see some of the other kind of categories down there. All those categories do bring with them a fair degree of work, and because of the complexity of the local government pension scheme has increased substantially over recent years, that the workload kind of that relates to those different categories of work has definitely increased, particularly around kind of retirements and new entrants. There's now just a couple of slides which show some of the key administration key performance indicators over 1920. And again, I'm not going to go through it in a huge amount of detail. You'll see that there's various green ones that got ticks against them, and red ones where we've dropped below the target. What I would say, I think Ian Howe, who you'll hear from a bit later, I think he's been a bit harsh on himself, giving himself reds. I think some of them might be ambers actually. But I think one thing worth noticing is the targets that we set ourselves are very high. So they're all in the kind of plus 90% range. And even when we fail to meet them, we have kind of performed fairly well, kind of generally over 90% against all those targets. So I think a pretty good performance. I'll now pass you over to Ian, who will talk a little bit about kind of some of the changes that are going to be coming our way over the next year or so.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate your comments, and maybe we have been a little bit hard on ourselves. Maybe they should have been ambers rather than red. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to cover 3 particular areas in my presentation, which is McLeod, the 95k exit cap, and a future sort of development of our member self-service solution, which we've now had in place for a little while, but we're starting to develop that further. So McLeod, you may, for those of you who were on the at the AGM last year, I talked about McLeod then, and it's still progressing. In December 2018, the Court of Appeal found protections that were put in place when the scheme moved from final salary to career average were unlawful on the grounds of age discrimination. That was brought about by younger scheme members who complained that public sector schemes had given greater protection to older members, particularly those within 10 years of retirement. This originated in the firefighter scheme, but it affects all local public sector schemes, and remedy is being finalised for each of the public sector schemes currently. The Leicestershire Fund has written out to all of its employers to request the hours that scheme members have worked in the periods between April 2014 and March 2020, so predicting ahead slightly there, as those hours will also come into us, and they will be used for the remedy. So although the remedy hasn't yet been finalised, we understand that will be needed, hence we've done that already. What will then happen is those hours for the scheme members in that period will be then loaded into the pensions administration system, and for leavers the benefits will be rerun. Effectively what that means is that the final salary benefits will be run to compare that to the career average benefits in the same period between those two dates, April 14 and March 22. If indeed a scheme member's benefit then becomes higher under the final salary calculation, i.e. what's called the McLeod remedy, then the members will have an increase in their pension benefits to account for that. The cost that McLeod has or will indeed generate was scoped into the last fund valuation, so the employers are aware of McLeod, and that has been considered and taken into account. The next point I wanted to talk about was the 95k exit cap. I'm sure some of you will have heard of this. I know we're receiving a number of phone calls from scheme members and indeed the employers asking us about this. So just to give you a little bit of a sort of a summary to start with, and then I'll explain how the fund is dealing with this. So on the 7th of September, government published their consultation reforming the local government exit pay. Following later in September, the House of Commons approved the exit cap and it became law on the 4th of November. And it's effectively limiting a scheme member's exit package to £95,000. But importantly, and this is the important point from a pension fund perspective, it includes the LGPS pension strain. The exit cap regulations and the LGPS regulations currently do not align. So we have a period of uncertainty to a degree here. Ministers are aware of the regulatory issue and have offered guidance to funds on how to proceed. And it's also important to note that not all the fund employers are impacted by the cap. So how we're actually going to deal with this is on this slide here. The employers, I should start by saying, are aware of this. We have sent out employer bulletins about the exit cap, so information is available. But obviously, if there are queries, then please feel free to contact us. So if we start with members who breach the 95k cap, prior to the exit cap regulations, a member would receive a fully unreduced pension benefit if they were made redundant or retired on the interest efficiency and they were age 55 or over. Under the new rules, under the exit cap rules, the pension fund will offer either a fully reduced pension benefit or a preserved benefit. So that's one of the slides that Chris talked about earlier. Preserved benefits are members who are not yet in receipt of pension, but have a pension benefit there as an entitlement for payment in due course. It is recommended by the fund that employers do not pay the cash alternative if a member breaches the 95k cap. For scheme members that do not breach the 95k cap, the proposal is for the fund to continue to pay unreduced benefits to the 30th of June 2020. The reason we've used that date, we believe there's going to be 6 months protection built into this area, and we believe that regulations will be in place in the first quarter of 2021. So if it's assuming these regs come in on the 1st of January, the 6 months runs to the 30th of June. Now, clearly, if those regulations are finalised after the 1st of January, that 30th of June will extend further. But that's what we're working to as a sort of a period of our protection. The scheme member and their employer must have entered into an agreement to terminate before the LGPS regulations come into force. So that has to have happened for us to continue with that fully unreduced benefit. What I would say is once the LGPS regs do come into force, and we will then obviously follow what the regulations state, and the member will not receive a fully unreduced benefit from that point. It is expected the redundancy value will be reclaimed from the pension strain. The pension strain is the amount that the employer has to pay to allow a scheme member to go who is made redundant or on interest of efficiency with their pension benefits if they're 55 or over. So that's how that works. Looking ahead from a systems perspective, we introduced the current system administration that we use there, member self-service system, last year, and it's gone really well. We're really pleased with the progress we've made on it. We have over 22,000 scheme members signed up, but as you saw from Chris's slides earlier, that's a fairly small number in terms of the total scheme membership in our fund. So we really wish to push this further, and we have plans to do that in 2021. What we're working on at the moment is a new online retirement process, which is being developed to allow a scheme member to liaise directly with ourselves throughout member self-service. And that actually includes the submission of their retirement forms, their certificates. It's designed for security. It's designed to help speed up the process, but it also helps us around the issue that's come around with COVID-19 this year, which I know everybody has encountered and struggled with to a degree. But by allowing us to use more system-based and digitised ways of working, that avoids some of the complexity around home working as well. So we're keen to press ahead with that. Yes, and I'm sure it will be. We plan on developing that into other processes, but we are starting with the retirement process because of the numbers that we deal with. If we can make it work with the retirements, then we can roll it out to other areas as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've got a short update on 3 areas, I think, in general. So we've got a pooling update, and we've got an LGPS central development product update, and then a couple of slides regarding specific Leicestershire County Council pension investments and responsible investing. So on this page here, go back a slide, please. So we've got the pools that are in the UK at the minute, so government instigated pooling back in 2015. We've got a number of fairly large pools here, which represent funds of the local authorities. We've got kind of 4 supersized pools now. We've got the Border to Coast Partnership, we've got the Northern Pool, we've got the Access, and we've got ourselves who are in the LGPS Central Pool. These pools together have local authority funds over 40 billion each, and our pool, Central Pool, is 8 local authorities. That's the West Midlands, Staffordshire, Shropshire, Worcestershire, Notts, Derbyshire, Leicestershire, and Cheshire. We go forward one. LGPS Central, like we said on the previous slide, is one of the pools, and since the launch, there have been 9 funds launched as at March 20. So on the right there, you can see on the slide, we have 4 passive pools which track indexes and, generally speaking, give us lower fees. We've got 3 active funds, that's emerging market equities, global equities, and corporate bonds / investment grade bonds. And they're all active funds, i.e. managers are selected to then go out and select which investments they want to partake in. And generally, we'd expect them to outperform the benchmarks, and they come with slightly higher fees. And right at the bottom there, we have two small funds there in private equity. Since we've written this slide, we now have 10 funds with Central. There has been a new fund just added in the last month or so. Moving on to our own fund. So we have our fund has been part of LGPS Central. We are invested in 6 Central products currently. We have global equity, emerging market equity, corporate bonds, and private equity. I've left out 2 there. EM debt and the climate fund are relatively new, so they're being invested in as we speak post March 20, but it'd be worth including those there for comment. We can come on to those again in a moment. We are also participating in a number of new product launches with Central, and it's key to remember that although we are part of Central, the Leicestershire Fund maintains its own asset strategy, its own liabilities still rest with the County Council. There on the right, we can see, with Central becoming the de facto manager and Leicestershire moving funds towards them, it gives our fund a single investment manager, and we have a single place to go for client support. Importantly, it also gives us access to ESG specialism, so that's environmental, social, governance, and kind of all-encompassing word for responsible investing. It also gives us the ability to influence the development of products that are suitable for our risk and return characteristics. Moving on to our own investments, we take a very long-term view, 20+ years. We have no need to make snap decisions, and time in the market is our kind of philosophy. Thinking back to earlier in the year, in March 20, when we had a bit of a market meltdown, we stayed invested all the way through that. We had no desire to come out of funds at that point. We are trying to reduce employer deficit recovery periods now, and we have no employers with deficit recovery periods over 20 years. And as we move through the 3-year cycles, we'd expect those to move down at 3-year intervals. The fund's current investments have an 80% likelihood of returning at least 3.8%. We probably expect to get a little bit more than that, but you can see there that the way that we've set the fund up, we'd expect at least a 3.8%, 80% of all scenarios. We'll move on to the next slide in a moment, and before we do so, it's just to point out, at March 20, the total investments were valued at 4.1 billion. A year prior, we were at 4.3 billion. The the drop there is largely due to the large drawdown that we had in February and March as the coronavirus impact spread. And we had, I think, the real nadir of the market was around the third week of March, hence we were at 4.1 by the end of March. A very simple slide to highlight the kind of diversification we have within the fund. So 4.1 billion is spread across what we like to call equities and private equity, so the riskier side, and that's 46.5%. So that includes all the kind of investments that you'd expect. So private equity, passive trackers of investments, and we've also got active managers within there. The real income part, a bit less easy to define, but in here it should include all the investments that are largely inflation resistant. So within there we have all our property investments. You know, those are the investments that would have, you know, index linked rents, for example. Likewise with infrastructure investments, and obviously index linked bonds, which are inflation protected. The last section in there, which we do have a fairly sizable amount, is alternatives, and that's the kind of diversifier slash stabilizer within our pool of investments. We have a number of investments in there, a number of managers, totaling around 1 billion. So we have a number of targeted return managers, and these managers are targeted to return a fixed return per annum. Currently, those three that we have in there are LIBOR plus 4%. We have an emerging market debt manager, and we have a private debt manager, but in total circa £1 billion within that diversifier slash stabilizer pool. This slide aims to show the investment returns over discrete annual periods. So we've got 5 separate annual years there on the top graph, and you can see the fund's performance versus the benchmark, and a table to the right of that. And below it, we've got a cumulative performance. So that's 1, 3, and 5. It's worth noting that we take a long-term approach, obviously, and we'd like to look at the 5-year number in the main. And you can see there in the bottom graph, the actual performance has been pretty much in line with our expectations at circa 5.4%. Responsible investing. So the fund kind of leverages responsible investing with the support of Central, and we do believe RI does give us a long-term risk-adjusted outperformance, and we state that within the fund's investment strategy statement. Within Central, we have access to a dedicated RI team, more so than we could within the council itself. So with them, we are able to draw up an RI plan by year. We are able to engage on a number of stewardship themes. Those themes are climate change, fair tax, single-use plastics, and tech and disruptive industries. We also are able to take a responsible approach to shareholder voting, and that's via engagement rather than divestment in the main. And we also get support from Hermes EOS, which is an equity ownership service, which are able to lobby and support Central as well. In the year ahead, we aim to build a new RI plan for 2021, which will come to committee for approval. We do maintain that we will continue within the 4 stewardship themes that we have used in the prior year. So just again, that's climate change, single-use plastics, tax transparency, and technology and disruptive industries. On the basis of at meetings with Central, we felt that these were worth continuing with. We have ongoing engagement, and the scope is wide enough to be effective. The last point on there is we have recently brought to committee a climate risk analysis, and we will be building on that in 2021, and hopefully become slightly greener as we move through the years.
Could I just say to members, So far we haven't had any questions, but if you want to submit them, please do so on what your officers have told you.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
See, it's Chris Tambini here. It seems to have gone quiet. I can hear you, Rosita, but I can't hear Peter.
I think he might be muted. Thank you, Chris.
Right, as I understand it, there is a question that's come in to us. Sorry for the delay, but because of the delay in the technology, we do allow just a bit of time for the questions to come in if there are any. So I'm pleased at least one's come in.
It's Ian here from the administration. We have had a question. I think it may have come in from the same person. It's regards the 95k cap, and the question is, will we get more information on this, as it's all very unclear to the layman? And then I think from the same person, or possibly from someone else, there's another question: what if you want to semi-retire at age 55? Well, in terms of the first one, we have informed all the employers. Some employers are affected by the cap, some aren't. So the employer will then liaise with scheme members affected by this. So if you're in a category where there's potential for you to be either redundant or retire on interest of efficiency, yep, certainly your employer will be liaising with you. We've asked all the employers to do that. It may be that you're an employer that isn't affected by the cap, in which case the regulations are as they are prior to the 4th of November. In terms of if you want to semi-retire at age 55, I assume semi-retire means flexible retirement. Flexible retirement is whereby you can retire if your employer allows you to from 55 or over, claim payment of your pension and remain in the pension scheme. That isn't affected by the 95k cap as it currently stands, although we haven't seen the final legislation yet. There has been talk of including the pension strain calculated within flexible retirements within the exit cap, but whether that is finalised or not, we will have to wait to see what the final regulations state. But we don't believe it will be impacted.
got two questions regarding responsible investing, so I'll pick up the first, which is can you give a successful example of an engagement or voting activity that has changed the behaviour of an energy sector company? Although I don't have any details as at hand, what I will be able to do is get hold of LGPS Central's stewardship reports and pick out the relevant parts. If we do get that question sent to democracy@leicestershire.gov.uk, then we can get back to you directly on that. The second question is regarding responsible investment strategy, including environmental objectives and an option for members to choose a higher sustainability emphasis for their pension investments. We don't have at the moment an option for members to pool their funds into a separate strategy. The fund has a single strategy, and we do aim to improve our ESG, which is environmental, social and governance, standing across the board and over time. So at the moment we don't have one. If things change, then obviously we'll be in consultation and respond back accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian, and to you, Bullish. If I can move on to item 7 then. A report compiled by the local pension board has been included in the agenda pack for today's meeting, and it was published online with the agenda papers. Mrs. Page, Chairman of the local pension board, will present this report. Mrs. Page.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for that. And good afternoon, everybody. The local pension board was established for the purpose of assisting the administering authorities to secure compliance with any applicable regulation, legislation and requirement imposed by the pensions regulator, as well as to ensure the effective and efficient governance and administration of the fund, which I'm confident we have achieved in the last year. This report included in the agenda pack details of the work of the board, and I will highlight some notable aspects of our work undertaken during the year. It would be remiss of me to talk about the work undertaken by the board without mentioning the impact of that the coronavirus has had and is having on all of us. But I must assure you that the local government pension scheme is a defined benefit pension arrangement where pensions are not affected by investment performance. Unfortunately, with any crisis, there's always the few that look for the opportunity to prey on the vulnerable. I must encourage all scheme members to consider carefully if you are looking to transfer your pension to another scheme. Do not put yourself at financial risk. While we have not seen the expected rise in transfers out of the scheme or refund request as we anticipated from COVID, we will continue to monitor the risk at all times. During the year, we welcome the opportunity to further consider responsible investment and how the fund was improving and management of the risk. We were pleased that the fund's approach focused on engagement rather than exclusion, which would have waived the ability to influence responsible investment behaviour through stewardship. We also recognise the benefit to pooling with LGPS Central, as it allowed for stronger engagement. Having a focus on positive engagement and intervention in order to improve responsible investment performance and sustainability. We look forward to receiving further updates throughout 2021 on all of the progress. We are acutely aware of scheme members and employers' concern relating to the £95,000 exit cap. During the year, we considered the fund's response to government consultation. While the cap is primarily an employer's issue, We remain troubled regarding the impact on the administration of the fund in relation to the pension strain. We will continue to monitor the situation as it remains a key issue with a potential impact. It is clearly concerning that the £95,000 exit cap could affect a lot of public sector workers, especially those who may have long service, such as nurses and social workers. We were pleased to note that the pensions manager had written to all employers, making them aware of the change to inform them that they must contact any impacted staff. We are aware some employers were looking at the implications and that Unison have been lobbying against the cap in its current form. We continue to encourage any scheme member of the fund who is concerned to contact their employer. Looking ahead to 2021, we will continue to maintain oversight of the fund and to receive our regular reports on administration, governance and risk. We await further guidance relating the impact of the McLeod ruling and whether it will require recalculation of post-2014 final salary scheme benefits and the impact it may have on the pension section. The area of employer risk and governance is also a growing area of focus for the pension section. The required resource will be allocated accordingly. We will await guidance from the Scheme Advisory Board Good Governance Project with regards to further action, and we will continue to monitor the fund's progress made towards a review and recommendations by Claire Scott, the fund's independent advisor, as part of the review of the fund's governance. May I conclude by expressing my thanks to my fellow board members and officers, especially Ian, who have stepped up to the plate, embraced to the new ways of working, and for their hard work and ensurance that the board continued despite all of the challenges faced and by the pandemic. May I also wish you all a very Merry Christmas and thank you for listening to me. And that concludes my report, Chairman. If there are any questions, I'm sure Ian Howe will be ready to comply. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Page. Could I move on to item 8, the election of employee representatives to the local pension committee? We've received one nomination for the position of employee representative on the local pension committee. The nomination is for Mr. N. Booth. No ballot is therefore required, and Mr. Booth will be appointed to the committee for a period of 3 years. The current representatives elected to the committee are therefore Mr. N. Booth, newly appointed for a period of 3 years, Mr. A. Wilson, to remain a staff representative for a period of 2 years, and Ms. J. Dean, to remain a staff representative for a period of 1 year. Item 9, election of employee representatives to the local pension board. We have received one nomination each for the available positions of reserve and employee representatives for the local pension board. No ballot is therefore required, and it has been agreed between the 2 nominated representatives that Ms. Fairchild will be appointed employee representative to the board for a period of 3 years, and Mr. Soroya will be appointed to the board as the reserve representative for a period of 1 year. The current staff representatives elected to the board are therefore Mrs. Fairchild, newly appointed for a period of 3 years. Ms. Gilbert, to remain a staff representative for a period of 2 years, and Ms. Haller to remain a staff representative for a period of 1 year. And Mr. Soroya will be the reserve staff representative for a period of 1 year. Any other urgent items? I have received no urgent items. Item 11, to arrange the date and time of the next annual general meeting. I will move that officers be requested to determine an appropriate date and time for the next pension fund annual general meeting in 2021 and publicise this date on the fund's website. Could I conclude and endorse what Mrs. Page has already said, to wish you best wishes for Christmas and to thank all the officers for the work that they've done. And we look forward to a happier and healthier new year. Thank you for your attendance.